DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, is one of the most important protocols to understand in computer networking. Before DHCP was developed in 1993, the Bootstrap protocol, BOOTP, was widely used. However, BOOTP came with disadvantages, pushing for the development of DHCP. The main goal of DHCP is to make sure endpoints on a network are given an IP address along with other parameters in order to achieve network connectivity. In the context of IPv4 addressing, there is no way to have endpoints automatically provisioned with routable IPv4 addresses without DHCP involvement. IPv6, on the other hand, can use Slack stateless address auto configuration to auto configure routable addresses without DHCP. You could go to every endpoint within a IPv4 network and manually configure static addresses, but it would be an extremely inefficient way to do things, and you're far better off configuring DHCP to do this for you and leaving the static IP configurations for mission critical servers and network hardware that we don't want depending on the DHCP server for connectivity. A DHCP server has a job of providing an endpoint with an IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and DHCP options. DHCP achieves its job with a four-way handshake using the discover, offer, request, and acknowledge packet sequence. An endpoint on a network, unless configured statically, will have no way of routing traffic, so it begins its DHCP process by sending a series of discover packets to the broadcast address of 255.255.255.255 with the source UDP port 68 on the client side and the destination UDP port 67 on the server side. The DHCP server on the network would receive these packets via its listening UDP port 67 and then respond with an offer message containing an available IP address, subnet mask, and default gateway, along with some DHCP options. This responding offer packet would be in the form of a broadcast targeted to UDP port 68. The endpoint would then respond to the DHCP server via a request packet in the form of a unicast in order to request for the parameters offered that are required by the client. Finally, the DHCP server responds with an acknowledgement packet via unicast containing the IP address requested along with any required DHCP options. DHCP options specify a very wide range of parameters, and going into each one would stretch this video out far too much, so I'll only discuss two commonly used ones. Option 51 is commonly used as it specifies the lease time for the IP address it gives to the endpoint device. Another very important option is option 6, which contains critical DNS information for the endpoint. Broadcasts terminate at the subnet they originated within, so this leaves DHCP with an issue. How can one DHCP server provide services to multiple subnets? Well, you could have one DHCP server per subnet, however, maintaining that would involve a lot of administrative overhead. A good option is to use DHCP relays, meaning if you have a router or a layer 3 switch with an interface connected to the subnet the endpoint requiring DHCP services resides in, and another interface connected to the subnet the DHCP server resides in, it can forward the DHCP traffic between the DHCP server and the endpoint across the subnet barrier. Due to the nature of DHCP, it's extremely important to consider security when implementing it. Imagine there is a hacker and they manage to pose as a DHCP server within your network. The hacker can give out any rogue DHCP options or IP addresses to endpoints, which would allow them to redirect network traffic to their DHCP server and effectively control network traffic from any endpoints they manage to send rogue DHCP parameters to. DHCP snooping is a great way to stop this, as it will stand guard, checking for any rogue DHCP packets and prevent them from traversing the network. DHCP snooping fulfills this role with the use of its DHCP snooping binding database. An administrator would manually configure two port types, trusted and untrusted. Trusted ports, as per their name, specify which ports are trusted to send and receive DHCP traffic with no inspection of the DHCP traffic. You would place a trusted port on an uplink to a DHCP server. Untrusted ports, however, are under heavy scrutiny and will be inspected for any malicious DHCP packets, and you would place these on all the other links that do not connect to authoritative DHCP servers. The DHCP packets on untrusted ports are filtered using the snooping binding database. This database builds itself up intercepting traffic or from what the administrator has manually put in for allowing or denying. The database contains client's MAC address, lease IP time, lease IP, lease type, VLAN identifier, and interface information. It then uses this information to filter out DHCP packets in order to keep only legitimate DHCP traffic from traversing untrusted links while filtering out any untrustworthy traffic. DHCP has a lot more depth than I have specified here, so if you're interested in more information in relation to DHCP, let me know in the comments and I will make a separate video diving into each topic at a deeper level.